Welcome to the Startup Grind.
So welcome to Nail It and Scale It. And we've got experts on both of those. Qualtrics, in case some of you don't know the company, they're a powerhouse in online surveys. More than 1 billion surveys last year. They're Salt Lake based, so there's a lot that we're going to explore about building a company outside the Valley and a really interesting path toward the venture capital world at a very different stage than many people come in. So Ryan, let's start with how you got into the survey business and what the problem was that you needed to solve. What was the pain point in the industry with what they did before you?
Yeah, I didn't actually dream when I was a little kid. I thought I was going to be a baseball player, a professional golfer, and wasn't thinking I was going to be in the survey space. But, look, my father was an academic. He's a researcher. He was always tinkering around with technology, and he had developed some software just for him and his PhD students, and I thought it was absolutely fascinating, the ability to collect data and insight. And was in junior college and said, let's blow this up. And that's really how it all started.
Took you a while to get everything rolling. I think it's close to 10 years in between when you opened the doors and when you were ready to seek venture money. Talk a bit about how you got a grip on your business and making some of the trials and errors, the iteration along the way.
Yeah, it's been a 10-year overnight success, right? So early on, it was very difficult. We had an enterprise type product that was very advanced, it was very sophisticated. It's kind of the area of the market that we targeted. It wasn't just, hey, the ability to create a form and send it out and get the results. It was the ability to create a form and actually have it be smart, intelligent, and collect data and do further analytics. So you actually were solving a problem, which was the old way of outsourcing a research project that would cost $30,000, $40,000, $50,000.
And how much was it costing with you?
Yeah, so it was just costing a couple $1,000s on a per service basis, per survey basis or project, even less than that. So we weren't trying to just scratch the surface. We actually wanted to solve the whole problem, which is a $30 billion outsource industry, and companies aren't doing it because it's such a laborious, budget-intensive process. So originally we started in academia. They were the only people that would listen in 2001, 2002, which I loved and I hated. I loved them because they would actually purchase it, but they had no money. They were extremely demanding, and it was tough to grow. I tried the enterprise early on, but I wasn't getting any traction. I was telling you earlier that there was an airline that I called, and they said, hey, if we've got problems with our customers and we want to gather insight, they'll just call us. Well, here we are 2 years ago, that same airline signed up on Qualtrics and running all their feedback. So it's kind of, I told you so. And then the business in 2007, 2008, we really tried to attack the enterprise again, and it just absolutely skyrocketed. So now we have over 5,000 enterprise customers. We've got 1,400 universities worldwide, 400,000 academics on the product, and we essentially did this with no marketing at all. It was just great product and great sales, and our customers kind of took off virally. Those from academia told their friends, students graduated and took Qualtrics with them, and the enterprise is a little transient, so people would use Qualtrics at one company. But I think the really cool part was to watch in the enterprise, and it wasn't just one person collecting data. There's all these insight seekers throughout companies, whether they're in HR and they need data. The companies need to be data driven, and Qualtrics has been a mechanism to allow that to happen.
So Ryan, Sweeney, how did the company get on your radar? What did you like about the story?
Yeah, for us, we spent a lot of time at Accel looking for great companies all over the world. So Silicon Valley is very important. We think there's always going to be the next great technology companies coming out of this 50-mile radius in which we all live. But we also think that technology has spread so far that there's great entrepreneurs and great businesses being started in a lot of other cities. And for us, it kind of went back 3 or 4 years ago when we started seeing a lot of the success in the consumer survey applications. We were impressed with some of the traction they were getting. But more importantly, we started seeing with our own enterprise, the own companies in our portfolio on the enterprise side, we're starting to do more and more around data and trying to understand what their customers are saying, what their channel partners were saying. And it used to be very reactive in our group, where you'd have an issue, you'd have a problem that was going on within your own constituency, and you try to figure it out after the fact. But we found that our best companies were the ones who were trying to get ahead of that and trying to own their own data. And so we started sniffing around for what companies they were using and who was providing good software solutions to that, and Qualtrics was the answer that kept coming up time and time again. So we didn't know the company at the time. We just started doing some research and started cold calling Ryan and sending him a bunch of emails, and he would politely respond, thanks but no thanks, which always tells us that this guy might be onto something. It's the ones who respond too quickly that worry you from time to time.
That's a no for everyone.
Yeah.
Play hard to get.
So yeah, we tracked him down for a while and got to know the business over time, and now are very lucky to be your partner.
So you've actually got a history within Accel of coming into companies that have bootstrapped a lot of the way that aren't looking for venture money 6 months in.
Sure.
Talk to me about how that subset is interesting and how it compares with your classic model.
Yeah, I mean, we just think the internet technology and the low cost of infrastructure have made the world a smaller place. And it's our job at Accel to go out and find the best companies and best entrepreneurs, period. And with that, it takes us to a lot of interesting cities, whether it's Salt Lake City or Provo or Chicago. I'm on board in Montreal. I work with a company called Squarespace in New York. Atlassian, which I saw presenting outside, had a booth. We flew to Sydney, Australia, and had to have lunch with the founder, Scott Muck, there. And for us, what's really interesting is that these companies have bootstrapped their way up to oftentimes profitability. They figured out a marketing angle in which their products have fit a need for a core customer base, and then they really want to go for it. And for us, that's really exciting. And we also believe that the best companies are all over the place. And again, it's a mission of ours to go out and find those businesses and try to be as helpful as possible.
You flew to Sydney just to have lunch?
We did. It was one of those, we're in the area, so we'll stop by.
Provo's not that bad.
No, Provo was easy. Provo was definitely easy.
Did you get a yes out of that lunch, or did you have to come back a second?
We had to go back a couple times, but we wound up twisting our arms enough. But it's really important. I think the best, and especially our enterprise portfolio, we think of companies like Atlassian, like Qualtrics, like AirWatch, Lynda.com, which is great software businesses, and we take it really seriously to go out and try to convince these guys to work with us themselves.
So the very first round, in fact, the only round of venture money so far, I believe, $70 million. Talk to me how you settled on that size. That's unusual for opening day.
It was all these guys that were driving that process.
Do you really want to know?
Yeah.
My two co-founders, my father and actually my brother, were like, we're not raising venture capital. And I said, well, what if I could bring $100 million Series A? And they said, yeah, right, whatever. And so,
Does they say that to you a lot when you do stuff?
yeah, it's just typical Ryan fashion, go make it happen, right? And we ended up I ended up doing the whole Silicon Valley Roadshow with a man named Duff Thompson, who's actually a board member, without them even really knowing. And then we came back with a bunch of term sheets that totaled that amount. And we actually found Sequoia and Accel, and we said, hey, if we could get these two great firms to work together, then we'll do a deal. Mm-hmm. And Ryan was awesome in that part.
What was funny for us is, we're trying to court Qualtrics, make all these introductions to our companies. I was sending him a bunch of Excel gear and swag and thinking about building up the love. And then he's sending me back these Qualtrics backpacks and T-shirts. So I'm thinking that I'm in a really good position. Then I'm walking around Palo Alto one day, going to the gym, and I see like 3 other dudes from other firms wearing the same Qualtrics. Wait a second. So I knew that he was playing the game and doing it in a very savvy manner.
That's great.
But I don't think they don't wear those T-shirts anymore, and I still get to wear mine.
So once you get this money, this is going to let you scale in a big way. Let's turn to the second half of what we're going to talk about. Where did you want to build out? Take me through engineering, sales, marketing. What did you want to do to become this bigger company as you could?
Yeah, so we'd grown to over $50 million in revenue with really no optimization, right? It was basically my brother and I and a couple people who were kind of in the first rodeo running this organization, and we thought, hey, look, when we really looked at partners, we wanted to bring the smartest people we could find in the templates, and that's really how we thought about it. Can 1 and 1 equal 5? And if because anyone can write a check to us at this point. Plus, we didn't need the money, so if we were bringing people in, it had to be a value add. And one of the things we liked about both Sequoia and Accel is they were super passionate about the business. Number one, it's just a small portion of our revenue was coming international. And so right there was just a huge opportunity to scale, which, a year later, I opened up Dublin last year. We now have 20 employees there in just a couple months, so it's been phenomenal. big fan of Dublin. Then, from a product standpoint, we were actually a single product company, and we've been working for 3 years on kind of building out the Qualtrics platform. And we've launched, our employee engagement 360 product, which is unbelievable, by the way. If we see that being the future with talent, is making sure that people engage that are working for you. And we just saw a bunch of upside there. So we said, hey, look, if we had gotten this far without either of those taking place. And then the last is we haven't done any marketing. No one knew who we were. My first interview was with Forbes, and it was after the deal. So, and we hadn't released a press release, so I thought, hey, wow, everyone says marketing's great. It'd be interesting to see what it actually does. And so we're still trying to figure that out. No, we're holding our first user conference where we're bringing our users together at the end of the month, and we'll have 1,000 people for the first time in Salt Lake City, and it's just been the dream. I waited 12 years to be able to finally have these resources to expand. And I think we're smart entrepreneurs, and I think we're bright people, but I think we're probably really fortunate, extremely lucky that we were sitting in the basement in 2002 working on a project or betting on a vehicle that 10 years later data would be at the forefront of everything, and we're playing a big role in that. And I think that's just super fortunate, because it'd be like people here trying to think out 10 years to figure out what the next Facebook is going to be. And we've had to make some hard pivots. I tell people we started probably 6 startups within this 10 years. So that's a long answer to a short question.
It's a couple good points, and for us, what excited us about the business, back to kind of why we started talking to Qualtrics, was there's a lot being written about big data and what was happening inside the data center. But as we took a step back in Accel, we found that there's almost 5x the amount of corporate data outside of your data center walls. What are your customers saying? What are your suppliers saying? And now with social media being so prevalent, one bad experience goes off with thousands of people very quickly. And a company that can help people get their handle on kind of the external big data problem was really, really interesting. And these guys kind of got that and believed that they were on top of a really interesting data set. And that was kind of step one for us. That they acknowledged the opportunity, but then they really wanted to just go big. And there's a lot of companies that get to a certain level, think they have all the answers. And what we loved about Ryan was, he's like, hey, I think I'm on top of a $1 billion opportunity, but I need some help. And for us, that's when the job's fun. That's when 1 + 1 = 5, and hey, let's go figure this out together. There's going to be ups and downs. It's not always up to the right, but we agree it's a big, big opportunity, and let's go try to do this.
So this is an enterprise opportunity as opposed to consumer.
Absolutely.
And talk a little bit about what's different scaling out in the enterprise space.
I think what people often forget is the service angle, truth be told. I mean, these are big companies that are spending a lot of money over time. And from day one, Ryan's had both a product and a sales-driven culture, which is really unique and hard to build. I think you see a lot of companies around the Valley now, everything's free, we're just going to push it out there, we're not going to take a phone call. And that sounds great in theory, but there's a certain moment in time where you do need to switch, and you need to take care of your customers, and you need to be responsive to their needs. And I think as you grow bigger and bigger within enterprises, you become that much more critical to what they're doing. And Qualtrics team got that from the start, and is still trying to scale that now, and it's a challenge. But I do think if you want to become a big, relevant enterprise company, you have to understand the service aspect of it, the sales aspect of it, as well as the technology aspect of it.
Brian, you were talking while we were waiting about what sounds like the beginning of the Qualtrics ecosystem, people who want to be your partners, who want to build your stuff in. How does that switch happen in the enterprise world, where you go from being this upstart that everyone hates or is frightened by, to someone that everyone wants to play with?
Well, I don't think it's happened overnight, first of all. I think that, we at a point, we're just signing up customers one by one. And at some level, you don't realize kind of what you've got or who you've got on the platform. The analytics are great, and the money's great, but the influence that you're making on people is actually really what can determine this type of an ecosystem. And we've watched people who used to view us as, and they probably still do, as very competitive and very threatening to this huge industry, say, hey, look, we've got to get thinking a lot more progressive and actually jump on board, because the channel that Qualtrics is bringing is going to swing around and take us out. And the great part about us is we don't want to be a services company. We believe that the expertise lies in the hands of those people who are actually the insight seekers and are creating, projects on Qualtrics, and they're the ones that know what they need to ask And what we're trying to do is make it so we can lower the barrier to entry. So if anyone in this room has a problem or a question, they can get really fast data back and make an insightful business decision. And that's what it all boils down to. I was at a conference recently, and I'm not going to say who it is, but a company that everyone would love to have on the stage came up and said, "Hey, you're with Qualtrics? Great. We used you in business school to do the pricing of our first product." I was just floored. But that kind of impact is what drives the ecosystem. And so our goal is to match up, the experts. Like, think about it. We have 400,000 academics. We've got 1,200 users at Stanford here. They're doing some pretty cool stuff, and it's innovative. What if we could take and have all the other users benefit from what Jonathan Levant or some of these professors up there are doing around reaction time, how long people look at some sort of stimuli before they make a decision. And it's phenomenal.
So that's clever. You've got all this faculty as your hidden sales force, and they're sort of planting into the grad student's mind the notion of use Qualtrics, and then they go get jobs.
It was genius. It was just the way we architected it in 2002. No, it's happened that way, but it's not only the faculty. What we're finding is there's a lot of innovation happening in tech outside of academia. I think everyone is innovating at some level, whether they're innovating in a general purpose or they're innovating within their organization. We're seeing people come right out of school and doing super innovative, forward-thinking, activities or projects that have never been done within their own organization. And what we want to do is take what they're doing and get it out to the masses, so that people can come in. And what it's really doing is just lowering the barrier so that everyone can be data-driven.
I think what's important on that, though, is the familiarity with the Qualtrics software. You go to the top research universities around the world, and the professors are all using Qualtrics, so then their students are using it as well. And those students tend to graduate and go get real jobs. And they bring this product knowledge with them and bring that into the enterprise. And you see that it just kind of starts seeping up. It could be one seat they buy a Qualtrics initially, or two seats, and it becomes a much broader enterprise license. So it was maybe lucky or maybe brilliance, who knows, but at the same time, I think it was a really effective way for Qualtrics to penetrate the enterprise early on.
And it was 7 years. None of our competitors wanted to do it because they didn't have the shelf life.
What advice would you give to anyone in the audience who's starting to scale a company? What are the hires you want to make? What are some of the pitfalls that if you're not careful, you can trip up your organization to grow?
Other than bringing on Accel?
Yeah, Accel partners. No, I think everyone thinks there's a magic bullet, right? I think that's what I see. And I also think people are trying to scale a company way before they've nailed it, which seems like the worst thing in the world to me.
If we just make it bigger, everything will
nothing would be worse if you don't know where you're going to add $15 million in capital. Like, it would make you lazy. I think that you've got to really understand where you're going, and I would bet on a company scaling much quicker once they had direction. I think incrementally you'll be much further along. So, for example, let's take our Europe example. I had a team that was coming at night inside sales, calling over to Europe from Utah. I had 6 of them. They were doing $600,000 a quarter. They were doing that for 2 years before I opened up Dublin. Now, I could have gone a lot faster, but when we opened up Dublin, we were able to bring on 20 employees in like 2 months. Instead of going over to Dublin, not knowing where we're going, not knowing the customers, and we were just thrashing around. We had it exactly nailed. I knew exactly where I wanted to be. I looked at the office in Dublin, and literally in 3 weeks, we have an office set up with phones. The hardest part of Dublin was trying to find a foosball table and a massage chair, right? It is because we had nailed the model, and we said, hey, there's going to be a time to scale. We will go very, very quickly, because we're going to know exactly where we want to go. And so the number one thing I see is people are trying to scale before they have an idea. And those are two separate problems.
Yeah, and for me, I just kind of pile onto that. It's just saying, remember it's a marathon, not a sprint. I think a lot of times companies get caught up in what's going on around them, the acquisitions they're hearing about, so-and-so is going public, I need to do this quick, and seizing this opportunity. And the reality is great things happen to great businesses. And if you just focus on making the right decisions for you and what's going to make your business sustainable, the good things will happen and the rest will take care of itself. I see so many guys get caught up in the hype and are making decisions for the wrong reasons, or they want to follow what other guys are doing. But you have to be true to yourself and also keep your own innovation going. What made us great? How did we get to $50 million today? how does that 50 million become 100 million? How's that going to become 250 million? You kind of have that plan in place, but get there over time. You have to build the foundation first. It's just critical. And we see so many companies that try to run, and frankly, it just cracks. And you have to be really careful about that.
And then it all boils down to the way this thing at Qualtrics is, what are you going to get done in the next 90 days? Great. All of that's great. Everything's great. But what's going to happen in the next 90 days? That's all we want to talk about.
The other thing I love about Qualtrics, and we see this with a lot of our best companies, is one, transparency within the organization. These guys are publishing daily sales figures. They know the goals that are going on every week. The executives are posting, hey, here's what I want to get done. And then they kind of look back on it at the end of the week, at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter. But again, the whole company knows about the progress in terms of where they are. And then it's also, they're kind of eating what they're selling, and I think that's really important. They're trying to convince enterprises to be more data-driven. You should know your data, you should be on top of it, you should use that to make decisions. Well, if Qualtrics isn't doing that themselves, it's just kind of a false belief that they're selling. And these guys eat and breathe that day in and day out. And I think that's just critical. Anytime we're making an investment, we want to make sure you're running your business that way. But I think it's just a really good practice. And the nice thing is that the employees just all feel that they're a part of something bigger. They understand what they're doing, and they just get super excited about it. They all share in the victories, which is fantastic.
So if you were to look at Qualtrics' growth right now, can you see an asymptote where at some stage you go, okay, we've filled our niche, or what are your thoughts on how big this company can get to be?
I feel like it's funny because it's essentially my 11th or 12th January, right? And that's the time of the year where you're like, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to get done this year? And I was like, wait, I've seen this movie before. But, I think I was sitting down with my wife and I was saying, hey, look, this is the year, man. This is a year. Like, we got to go all in this year. And she's like, okay, you said this to me for the last 10 years, right? But it's cool because we're still reinventing everything we're doing, and we're still being innovative, and we're still just scratching the surface over in Europe and international. We're still, opening up offices and going from, building out that platform. So I look at everything we've done and I think, yeah, that's great, but nothing's gotten me more excited. That's why I'm still passionate in doing what we're doing about 2014, 15, 16. I feel like we now finally have resources in place to move as fast as we want and get the right cadence going in the business. And I feel like we're just scratching the surface. And if you like plotted all of our customers and you saw people from different industries, you would see that we're not, besides academia, we're not penetrated as far as we need to be. And there's a lot of space between it, so that keeps me pretty encouraged.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's just starting and it's exciting. And again, we're in the middle of fundraising at Accel right now. We're getting a lot of questions about the cycle and what's going on, our valuations, profit. And the other thing we like about businesses like Qualtrics, Dropbox, Atlassian is that they're just great companies in any cycle. And back to keeping your head down, doing what's right, building your business for the long term, great things will happen. And the sky's the limit for these guys. I mean, enterprise data collection, surveys, research, it's just so important to how these companies operate day in, day out. And it's just getting going. I think the awareness is just absolutely in its infancy, and it's going to get more and more critical over time.
And I think one more thing, just not to pile on, but we're starting to see a lot more people become data-driven and want to be these insight seekers. And so they're basically, if they've got a question, Qualtrics can get anytime they have that question. And I think that's what's also driving the market is people are becoming much more technical, and data is becoming, hey, we just don't want opinions. We want people to make decisions on data.
And that's one of the big trends we've seen at Accel over the last 5 to 10 years is that the CMOs within large enterprises are technologists now. It used to be you spend $1 on advertising, you have no idea which 50% worked, which 50% didn't. But that's no longer acceptable, and Google's kind of responsible for that. Everything is quantifiable, everything is measurable right now. So as the cost of technology has gone down and the cost of infrastructure in the enterprise has lowered, IT budgets have kind of stayed flat, which has opened up room for the marketers. And these marketers now are being given the choices to go out and buy products like Qualtrics, or investors in a company like Hootsuite, that they're buying pretty rapidly. And to us, that's really, really interesting, and that's, we think, just in the early days. The technology skills of the CMOs are just starting, and it's becoming really, really important in the organization.
So I'm going to jump on that point. We've got two great thinkers here. If you were to say, what should the CMO be buying next? What new company would I be? Ryan, I'm sure you've got more ideas than you can launch Qualtrics banner. where would you tell people to look?
I think the connection between marketing and sales is still a little broken. I mean, everyone talks about the CMO spin, but if you actually look at our sales spin, I think this is a problem that all CEOs are calling me about and trying to figure out. I think that you mentioned that we've got a great sales culture and a great product culture. Those are extremely rare. Either you're totally engineering driven or you're total sales driven. And we've been able to put two of them together in one kind of harmonious way where we're working together at that. But the disconnect between marketing and sales and the impact, I feel like it's still broken everywhere. And I feel like we're helping a lot from a data standpoint. I think if you just work your way back from the customer and kind of get out of your building and internally focus and just start with the customer and work your way back, that's the only way to solve that. So anything that's like positioning or helping that is probably going to impact the business more than anything I've seen.
Yeah,
That's just me personally.
I'll give a vague answer to that as well. I think it's
Say my answer
a little bit, yeah. But I do think it's things that are starting to draw the lines and have that platform view. You know, the analogy that I always use is just, why isn't your Workday application talking to your LinkedIn application? If you're using LinkedIn to recruit and identify employees, why then isn't it syncing with what's happening at Workday and telling you, geez, employees were recruited from X have proven to be successful, and here's why. So I think what's really interesting what Ryan's doing at the CMO suite levels, we're going to figure out ways, hey, you want to talk and work with Salesforce, awesome. Let's figure out a way for you to do that. If you want more marketing tools tied into what we're doing at Qualtrics, we'll make that happen. If there's historical data sets that you were using, let's suck that in too, so that the insights are just happening on a very, very basic but platform level, and things start talking about it. I think that's the next step for SaaS companies, particularly in the enterprise, is that the lines have to next be connected. There's no way you should just be using one system for data sits in the cloud, another system that sits over here in the cloud, and the organizations continue not to talk. I mean, that's kind of the holy grail of the cloud, and that's why we're putting all our information up there, is that we start using it to play off of each other and make better decisions across the entire enterprise.
One more thing, there's this notion between proactive versus reactive data consumption, where I think, from a business intelligence standpoint, going out to a dashboard, going out to something, and if you think about a marketer's role or even, anyone that's, running any type of analysis, it needs to be reactive so it comes to you and you can react. And I think that we're totally missing the boat here, where we've got to go into Salesforce and log in and see that. It's like, I'm not going to log in to Salesforce. It needs to be absolutely pushed to my email or my phone or whatever it is. So if any of you are working on cool data apps, that's just the world we live in. Make it so it's reactive, so that people have to look at it every single day. One of the cool things with these guys is we've taken all of our metrics, and this goes to our board every single night at 5:30. Ryan can see everything that we're doing, from sales to employees to hires. All of that goes to them, and it's crazy because sometimes we'll just play games and we'll hold it off so it comes in at like 6 o'clock and we'll get emails. Where is it today? Right? So it's like crack cocaine. They're like, look on all these metrics.
That we do.
Yeah. And, first thing, I haven't seen Ryan in a couple months. He comes up, hey, we had a good day yesterday, right? I mean, that's phenomenal from our standpoint. We brought these people in to be our partners, and we need to give them the data that needs to be looked at. And so I think that, this reactive data consumption is a huge area that all of our businesses need to shift in.
And there's 3 companies in our portfolio that do that: Qualtrics, Atlassian, Dropbox.
Terrific. The guys with the time bell are starting to wave at us. Thanks so much for coming. There may be a chance for you to follow-up questions come up stage, and we'll help you as best we can.